Lou, you have said no one can ever control your attitude but you. And so let's talk about for a moment that Florida State Sugar Bowl game in 1991, Notre Dame versus Florida State. Around the time of this game, a waiter once said to you, Cheerios belong in a bowl, not Notre Dame. Now, this guy thought he was making a joke. You didn't take it that way, as I understand, so just bring us back to that moment if you can. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, we're playing Florida, which was coached by Steve Spurrier. They were number 3 in the country, and we were a decisive underdog. And I felt we would play very well because we had a marvelous attitude. And I think the attitude is the most important thing. It's the most important choice you make. And so I take my family out to dinner, and I love being with my family in a great mood. And the waiter come up and asked me this question, you know, what's the difference between Notre Dame and Cheerios? I said, I don't have a clue. He said, Cheerios belong in the bowl, Notre Dame doesn't. Being competitive, this upset me, this bothered me. And, you know, finally my wife said to me, you're going to let somebody you never met before, never going to see again, doesn't care a thing about you, ruin an evening because of something stupid he said. She said, he doesn't know you, he doesn't care about you, he's never going to see you again. You can't let him do that. Then more I thought about it, I said, you know, you're right. And that's when I called him back over. And I said, let me ask you a question. What's the difference between Lou Holtz and a golf pro? And he said, I don't have a clue. I said, a golf pro gives tips, which he found out when the evening's over that you cannot slight the customer and expect to be rewarded.
When people doubt your abilities, it's easy to doubt yourself. What's the best way to recover from the self-doubt?
Well, I think that you can succeed when absolutely nobody believes in you. Nobody can believe in you, you can still succeed. But you have no chance to succeed if you do not believe in yourself. And I think self-confidence comes from basically a choice you make based on your experiences. Not all of us are going to win all the time, but I think it's having the right approach, the right preparation. As I've said to football teams many times, you're going to make a mistake on Saturday in the big game. I'm going to forgive that. I'm going to forgive every mistake you make except one. I'll never forgive you if you make the mistake of failing to prepare. I don't care what happens on Saturday, as long as you prepared adequately. And I think if we prepare and make the necessary preparation, whether it be in business, whether it be in sports, whether it be with the family, if you make the necessary preparation, do everything you possibly can, you're going to enjoy success more often than you're going to lose. Now, nobody's going to win 100% of the time. Nothing's always going to be easy, but I do think making the necessary preparation. Tony La Russa came down and spoke to our football team once at Notre Dame. I'll never forget. He said, we're involved in a pennant race. You're involved in a national championship race. He said, everybody talked about pressure. Pressure's when you have to do something you are not adequately prepared to do. If I got to make a 4-foot putt and I haven't prepared for it, I feel pressure. But if I have prepared all my life for that 4-foot putt, I want to be there to show people how good I am. If I got to take an exam and I'm all ready to take it and they cancel the exam on the morning of the test, I'm disappointed because I want to show people how much I prepared. So self-confidence comes when you have made the preparation to be in that situation. But once again, if you don't believe in yourself, you have no chance.
Let me see if I can paraphrase that and then just piggyback on that. It's kind of believe in yourself even when no one else does, which is what you're saying partially too.
Yeah, but I also think you have to have reason to believe in yourself. You can't just say, oh, I've never played golf before, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to play great today.
And that's my second point then, to piggyback on it would be, I've been fortunate, lucky enough to write 6 books. I don't know, 70,000 words, about 420,000 words. Throughout all the 6 books, I have one theme that you just espoused, and that is prepare to win. Now, put that on a book, boring. I mean, no one's gonna go pick up a book. What's this, prepare to win? The preparation, again, is everything. Do your homework, and of course, I've learned that from you over a long period of time, so I couldn't agree more. When you size up a person for the first time, what do you look for, if I may ask?
Well, I don't think you can really make a true evaluation on somebody based on just a short period of time. But the first thing I want to know, does he shake hands firmly? Does he look you in the eye? What kind of self-confidence? might they have? Does he have a smile? Is he at ease? Is he comfortable? I just think it isn't anything that you just say, well, this is what I look for. But you just sort of have a sense about, does he want to be here? Does he want to do something else? It's like when somebody walks into a room. Is their attitude, hey, there you are. Tell me about you. What can I do for you? Or is their attitude, hey, here I am. Look at me. It's all about me. So if I can ascertain one of the two, I got a pretty good evaluation. Other than that, I'm not real quick to pass judgment on somebody.
Can you recall a memorable moment when a first impression might have made you buy something? Let's talk about it in terms of a buyer or an idea. In other words, what I've always said is you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Trust your first impression instead of your second thoughts.
Well, the biggest mistakes I've made is when I've made decisions based on somebody's reputation. That somebody was ultra successful in a certain area and now he goes into another area and you think that automatically generates trust. And I was burnt badly by this individual, a national figure. And what I have learned is put your trust in people that genuinely you know and they care about you and they're totally committed to excellence. I'm not very complicated in life. In other words, I just try to simplify who I want to be associated with now and not the great reputation.
This is from one of your books that I picked up. You said, say it loud and proud, I sell. As a football coach, selling is an underestimated part of your job, might it be? And so our audience understands this better. What do you sell and to whom?
Well, I think no matter what your profession is, you're in selling. You may have to sell your employees, you may have to sell your customers, but you're constantly selling your vision, your plan of what you want to do. But in coaching, it was recruiting. And all I wanted to know is who's going to make the decision, what are they going to base their decision on, then show them how we could help them get that better than any other school. Now, is the boy going to make the decision? Is the dad? Is the mom? Is it the high school coach? Is it the uncle? Is the main thing they're concerned about education? They're concerned about playing early. They're concerned about winning. They're concerned about the style of offense. They're concerned about the NFL. Are they concerned about where their son's going to be 40 years from now? And once you ascertain who's going to make the decision and what they want, then you have an obligation honestly and sincerely to show these people how your selection is best for them to achieve their total goal. But if you don't know what the customer wants, you don't know what the prospect wants, you don't know who's going to make the decision, you're whistling in the wind. I mean, you're just hoping things work out.
I love your comment about where your son wants to be 40 years from now.
Well,
that's vision.
In recruiting, I always said it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. Because for the next 40 years of your life, where you went to school, what you're going to learn, how that school is going to develop, how it's going to utilize your talents better, how is it going to prepare you to be a success in all endeavors. That's more important than anything else. As a matter of fact, the school you select is the second most important decision you make. Obviously, the most important one is who you're going to spend your life with. And you think, this one's tough. You wait till you go to bed the night before the wedding. You're going to have real doubts, but that was 46 years ago, and I'm still married to the same lovely young lady.
And that's 46 years for me, too. So we're on the same page, that's for sure. We were talking about sales, and it's amazing to me over a long period of time how sales is a dirty word to a lot of companies. I mean, they actually don't call their salespeople salespeople. They try to come up with any other name. Account executive, consultant, advisor, marketing representative. Isn't that amazing how sales, and yet there are no jobs, as you well know. No company can exist until someone brings the order through the front door. And yet, what do you think's on my card, incidentally? You ready? Envelope salesman. Had it on my card for 46 years.
Well, most people, Harvey, go into sales as a temporary profession. They aren't going to do it, but they like the fact that the hours they sort of control their own. They like the fact that they can give themselves a raise every day. But see, they aren't going to do that for life. And then what happens is they never make the commitment, and they go from one fad to the other, following the easy thing. Whereas a true salesman, somebody that has a sincere pride in what they do, they understand that their product really helps other people. It makes other people's lives better. When you say, what do you do? They say, I'm a salesman. They take pride in it and believe that they're helping other people. And they want to do it. And there's a difference between being a salesperson and what I refer to as a sales pro. But you're absolutely right. If a company has 5,000 employees and they have 500 salespeople, those 500 salespeople control the future ambitions and dreams of those other 4,500 people. All those 4,500 people's hopes and dreams to educate their children, to buy a home, to take family vacations is contingent upon the success of the 500 salespeople. Because if they don't win, nobody has a dream, nobody has a future.
Always give something more is what I picked up from one of your books. And Coach Woody Hayes required you and other assistant coaches at Ohio State to start let's take it from the top, okay? Always give something more is what I learned from one of your books. Coach Woody Hayes required you and other assistant coaches at Ohio State to start in for next Saturday's game at 7 p.m. of the Saturday that you just played. In other words, no Saturday night off. So isn't a powerful work ethic at the heart of any superior organization?
Well, that was after we beat Purdue in the greatest win that I'd ever experienced. Purdue came in #1 undefeated. We were undefeated as well. I had my family, I had my aunts, my uncles, my mom, my dad, my in-laws, my fraternity brothers, high school. Oh, we're going partying after the game. Coach A said, great win. I'll see the staff at 7 p.m. tonight. We got to get an early start on next week's opponent. We went on to go undefeated and win the national championship. But what you learn is you have to continue to prepare and look ahead. If what you did yesterday looks big to you, you haven't done much today. And I think life is nothing more than trying to build on one success after the other. But there isn't an easy way to do things. The one thing I love about successful people, I know the sacrifice they've had to make in order to be successful. Show me successful parents, spouse, president, chairman of the board. Show me a successful athlete. I'll show you somebody who's made sacrifice. But losers, they don't want to make sacrifice. They call that punishment. You got to lift weights. Well, that's punishment. You got to do without drugs and alcohol, and you got to have curfew. Well, that's punishment unless you want to be a champion. And there's not an easy way to do it. I wish there was. I wish somebody could give you a pill and say, hey, take this and everything's going to work out. It doesn't. There's a price to be paid. And what I learned back in '68 from Woody Hayes, among many things, that if you're going to be a champion, you're going to have to pay a price. You're going to have to be different than the average bear. The average bear would be out celebrating after that game, but Coach Hayes would not allow us, which is why we ended up undefeated.
Powerful lesson, and I really, truly, sincerely love it. I learned this about Kemmons Wilson. He was the founder of the Holiday Inns, and his son told me this story, that he never graduated. Kemmons Wilson, founder of Holiday Inns, never graduated from his high school class in a small Tennessee town, and yet they asked him back to be the commencement speaker. So he gets up and says, I don't know what to tell you. I haven't got a lot to say. All I figured out is all you have to do is work a half a day every day. It doesn't matter if it's the first 12 hours or the second 12 hours. And so that comes right in the heels, of course, of Woody Hayes' work ethic. I'm not what I want to be. I'm not what I ought to be. I'm not what I'm going to be. But thank God
I'm not what I used to be.
Oh boy, you know your material.
Yeah, what I say about that is that we have to continually try to improve each and every day. And I used to ask our coaches, To go in the locker room after every practice and ask the players, how did you get better today? How did you improve? See, there's 3 ways to improve an organization or a team. 1, you add people. Go add qualified people. You're going to improve the team. The other way you can improve that team is by deleting certain people. Not often. But who are the ones you delete? The ones that are always bitching and moaning and complaining about everything and never have a positive suggestion. But the most important way you can improve the team is if everybody on that team got better today than they were yesterday. And there are no age restrictions on improvement. You should be better prepared today than you were yesterday, but not as well prepared as you'll be tomorrow. And what I found, the teams, that after you lose a lot of seniors, everybody thinks you're going to be down. But it's how much improvement each of those players make during the off season and during fall practice determines who the best teams are going to be. And if you get better each and every day at doing something, eventually you're going to be pretty good.
Good old plain common sense. You repeat the above lines to yourself from time to time. You also like some words a nun taught you in grade school. Good, better, best. Never rest.
Till the good's better, the better's best. It was just certain things that, you know, hit you that you really sort of identify with, and it goes back to improvement. See, I don't think it matters where you are. It's where you aspire to get, and you have to figure a way to get there. When I first went to Notre Dame, as Father Hesburgh said to me, he said, I can name you the head football coach at Notre Dame. I can give you that title, because titles come from above. He said, what I cannot do is I cannot name you the leader. The players will determine who the leader is. And I said, well, what do you think makes a leader? And so what I really believe, there are 4 things that make a leader. Number 1, you have to have a vision of where you want to go. Number 2, you have to have a plan how you're going to take this organization there. Number 3, you have to lead by example. And number 4, you have to be positive in the time of adversity and hold people accountable. There are too many people in this world that aren't held accountable. It's always somebody else's fault. But if you hold people accountable and you have a vision, a plan of where you want to go, and that plan is to become the very best. And Ken Chancer of NBC said one time, first we'll be best, then we'll be first.
Very sage. I remember I heard one of your speeches about rights and privileges. Can you expand on that? Which kind of
the difference between athletes today and 25 years ago. Today, everybody wants to talk about their rights and their privileges. I'm going to sue you. This is my right. It's my privilege. 25 years ago, people talked about their obligations and their responsibilities. And to me, we've gotten away from personal responsibility. And I think a lot of it is a fault of schools and a variety of different things. But we got to hold people accountable that decisions have ramifications. And life is a matter of choices. You make the proper choices, good things are going to happen to you. But when you make bad choices, you cannot blame it on somebody else. And I never wanted an athlete to blame somebody else for their present situation, because if they did, Harvey, they were in essence saying, somebody else got me here, so somebody else has to get me out. When you realize I'm in this situation because of a choice I made, you'll be willing to get yourself out.
The way you manage the huddle is really famous. Colleagues call you up and ask, Coach, tell me about your huddle and how you coach it. Can you explain that to me?
I've just been a great believer that if you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you're going to perform well. And whether it's your attire when you go to a job or whether it's the huddle, I felt our football team, and if we got in the huddle the right way, and we lined up our feet and had our hands on our knees, and we practiced the huddle a great deal, and we broke the huddle with an enthusiasm and excitement, and we got in good stance, we got in good alignments, and we did the little things and took pride in those little things, it would carry over. As I would say to the football team jokingly, boy, we break that huddle, everybody going to say, wow, are they really good? Now, once the ball's snapped, we might not be able to control it. But we're going to do the things the very best of our ability. There are a lot of things in this world, Harvey, that doesn't take talent. I could give you 35 things that don't take talent in regards to football. Doesn't take talent to know your assignment. Doesn't take talent to work hard. Doesn't take talent to line up properly. Doesn't take talent to encourage your teammates. All these things do not take talent. Then why can't we do those better than anybody in the country if it doesn't take talent?
And what I want to add to that is little things mean a lot. Not true. Little things mean everything. And you are the king of the little things. I want to talk about visualization for a moment or two and just give you the experience that I've had. And I want to also maybe turn the clock back. We met in 1983, lucky enough to be in the locker room and be at your practices at Minnesota, also at Notre Dame, of course, for I think it was 11 years, which was wonderful. University of South Carolina. Stayed at your home nights before ball games, and the one thing probably more than anything else since I've met you and known you these past 23, 24 years is what happened on Friday night. And I'm not even sure that you want to talk about it here, but let me just ask the question, and before I ask it is as follows, about visualization. There's a man by the name of Viktor Frankl who owes his life to his ability to project himself. He was a renowned Viennese psychiatrist before the Nazis threw him into a concentration camp. I heard him speak years ago, and he held us completely spellbound. He says, look, there's only one reason why I'm here today. What kept me alive in a situation where others had given up hope and died was the dream that someday I'd be here telling you how I survived the Nazi concentration camp. Never been here before, never seen any of you before, never given this speech before. But in my dreams, I've stood before you in this room and said these words 1,000 times. Can you talk? I mean, that's powerful. And what I saw you do with all of these 3 different college teams with visualization, I mean, I'd like you to just tell the audience, tell our listeners, you know, what you have in mind, what you believe in.
I believe having visualization of what is going to happen, expecting it to happen. And if you have a picture in your mind, your body's usually going to find a way to make that picture come true. And I would visualize with the football team on a Friday night. Before a big game, I tried to do it a couple times a week. But because of their class schedule, I couldn't. But I believe in this so strongly. And you have them go through the game, and you call the plays and the opening plays. And they visualize the play, always being positive. Never allowing a negative thought to enter the mind. You talk about them being enthusiastic, about being excited. You go through the success they had. And then you always end up with the visualization of walking off that field victorious, being in the locker room with your teammates hugging them, walking out of the locker room and seeing your family and your girlfriends. And I've had players tell me they thought it was one of the best things that we did on a weekly basis. And whether it be Viktor Frankl, whoever it is, I think visualization. We've had all kind of people in concentration camps, in prison camps, prisoner of war camps. That's what keeps you going. That to visualize the end result. The body will find a way to have it happen.
So that salesperson that's going out and making a lot of cold calls might be a little nervous. He can be visualizing that customer accepting, okay, right?
Even better than that, they can practice it on somebody in their family and visualize it. What are the different questions you're going to have? And every possible question that somebody might have, that you'd be prepared to go in there and could answer any question they have. When somebody says no, they're not saying no to you. In essence, if they're saying no to your sales presentation, all they're saying is, I need more information. That's all. They're not saying no. They're just saying, give me more information.
Setting the example, high standards start with you, you have often said. You've said that anytime you entered a staff meeting as a head coach, you always felt that you had to be better prepared than anyone else. I think we've covered that before.
Well, no, to a certain extent, but I do believe it. I think it is a leader of an organization, whether it be of a family, of a business, of a team. It's up to you to set the standard of acceptance. Too many people in a leadership role, Harvey, are so insecure that they want to be popular. They want to be well-liked. Our obligation as leaders is not to be well-liked, to make people the very best they possibly can. And you cannot do it if you don't have high standards. Now, you don't say to somebody, okay, here's the standard, you didn't reach it, you're gone. You say, this is our standard, I'm going to help you reach it. And all I ever expected out of somebody is to do the very best they can on preparation, etc. And I think that we're doing a disservice to somebody if we allow them to do anything less than the best they're capable of doing. And I think that as a parent sometimes, particularly when we're divorced, we just want that children to accept us. So we want to keep them happy. That's not your obligation. Your obligation is make them the best you can and prepare them to enjoy success. And that is sometimes very difficult to do because you got to be a little bit difficult to get along with at times to make them the best they can be. Because see, Harv, most people don't realize how talented they are. Most people don't realize how good they can be. Most people don't realize how unlimited their success can be. It's only when they're pushed and coerced and encouraged they find out greatness.
You've said to me on so many occasions, Harvey, don't compromise your standards.
Oh, I definitely believe that. You cannot do that. And if I went into a staff meeting after making a speech, I had to be better prepared than anybody in that staff, because if I wasn't, they'd think my priorities was right and I wasn't committed to excellence. Say, hey, coach, you have a nice time to Phoenician? Did you play golf? Did you have dinner? Did you go out? When you walk in that staff meeting, you're totally prepared. They know you're committed to excellence. And once again, when I talked about leadership, set the example. Lead by example.
Okay, on leaving the job of head coach of the New York Jets after 8 months, you said, quote, I had come to it without a clear sense of purpose. So what do you mean by a sense of purpose? What is a sense of purpose? Is it important to success? If you don't have a clear sense of purpose, does it hurt your ability to sell? And then how do you map out purpose in your career? Kind of all tied together.
Well, there's a couple different issues here. First of all, I turned a job down with the New York Jets a couple times. And they asked me to come to New York to explain to Mr. Hess why I didn't want the job. So I went up to turn it down. And Mr. Hess, one of the most impressive people I've ever met, one of the most beautiful people I've ever been around. And I called my wife at night and she said, you did what? I said, I'm the head coach of the New York Jets. And we really didn't want to move from North Carolina. I didn't want to go to New York at that time. I didn't want to coach professional football at that time. But I went there without a commitment, without a sense of purpose. And every time something went wrong, which was often because it was first-year free agency, we lost John Riggins before I ever got a chance to meet him. Went to the Washington Redskins, we got nothing in return. And I'd say, I didn't think this is what I want to do. I didn't think this would work out. And after 8 months on a 5-year contract, I resigned. And the point I make, you can put somebody in the greatest environment in the world, but if they don't have the right attitude, they don't understand their sense of purpose, they're going to be unsuccessful, and it bothers me to this day. And your sense of purpose is understanding what you're trying to do. All I wanted to do as a coach in college was graduate our athletes and win. If I was doing something that didn't help us graduate our athletes and didn't help us win, I was wasting my time, because my purpose was to graduate and win. That's it. Not put them in the pros, not become a 2 handicap in golf, not to socialize, graduate and win. If people in the field of business will understand what they're trying to do, they aren't running a railroad. They're trying to transport people from one location to the other. If you understand what your sense of purpose is, you will then look and say, how can I do this better? What am I trying to do? How can I do it better than anybody else? And that way you will embrace change, not change for the sake of change, but you're willing to change because you understand what your focus is, what your purpose is. When I went with the Jets, my focus and my purpose was not to win championships, etc. It was try to adjust to professional football, try to adjust to New York, try to get my family to adjust. And I regret it to this day because I let people down and put their faith and confidence. There wasn't anything wrong with professional football, wasn't anything wrong with the Jets. The problem was me, the attitude I have, and the focus and purpose.
As I recall, a man by the name of Joe Namath was the quarterback. Is that right?
Oh, Joe Namath's a beautiful individual. I cannot say a negative thing about Joe Namath. You can talk about him being a playboy. I want to tell you, when it came to football, he was totally dedicated. Now, he was handicapped by a hamstring problem and a variety of different things. But there wasn't anything wrong with the athletes. There wasn't anything wrong with the administration with the Jets. The problem was with me.
WIN is an acronym for what's important now. This is really a shorthand for setting priorities, isn't it? And are you constantly re-examining your priorities?
Well, I think if you ask yourself, this is what I want to do, what's important now? If you ask yourself 25 times a day, what's important now for me to get that done? It'll evaluate the past, focus on the future, but tell you what you have to do in the present. For example, I want to win a championship and I'm an athlete. You wake up in the morning, what's important now? Get out of bed. Oh, what's important now? Eat breakfast, need your strength. What's important now? Go to class. What's important now? Sit in the front room. What's important now? Be prepared. You want to win a championship, you're in the weight room. What's important now? To get stronger, not because somebody's looking. When you go out to the practice field, you want to win a championship. What's important now? To get better, to encourage your teammates, to get them together. You're out Saturday night and there's booze and drugs and sex and heroin. You want to win a championship. What's important now? You better avoid that situation. So when we want to do something, don't complicate the issue. Just say, what's important now for me to do that? And you can't have 30 different things up there, or you're going to be going 30 different ways. Try to keep your focus on your purpose.
As a kid, you were an 80-pound wonder. It didn't matter if the guy across from me outweighed me, these are your words, by 200 pounds. You describe yourself as a small young man with big glasses and a lisp. That's determination. How important is it to learn determination early in life?
I think determination is basically not wanting to fail. I think that where that came about was one of the first football games I ever played in for St. Aloysius. And I turned down a guy. I wouldn't tackle him. I was afraid. And I saw the embarrassment that I caused for myself and for my family. And what became obvious to me, the pain I might have gotten from trying to tackle the guy was minimal compared to the embarrassment and the pain. See, physical pain will fade. The mental pain lasts forever. And so from that experience, I didn't ever want to have that happen again. It didn't matter how big a guy was. It didn't mean I was going to win or going to succeed, but I was going to give it the very best effort I could, so when I looked in the mirror, I would know I tried to do it the right way. Determination also doesn't mean I'm just going to keep beating my head up against a wall. Let's not confuse determination and persistence. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Determination is saying, this is what I want to do. I'm going to persist with it. But when it doesn't succeed, I'm going to look at why didn't it succeed. I'm going to sit back, evaluate, analyze it, and make some other changes to enable us to have a different result.
Our meeting started, first time was in 1983. Paul Gio, personal friend of mine, and I attended the University of Minnesota, had quadruple bypass surgery. Lying in a hospital, head of the search committee looking for a coach, and the university officials then gave me the right to go out and look for a coach, and we contacted each other on the phone, and you came to Minneapolis in 45 degrees below zero wind chill. We sat in a room and talked for a couple days about a lot of things, and I'll never forget towards the end, you said the following to me, that I will accept the head football coaching job at the University of Minnesota under the following conditions. You had several conditions, but this is one of the conditions. And that is starting with the popcorn sellers to the ticket takers, to the trainers, the managers, the secretaries, public relation, advertising, sales promotion people. If all of those people are not committed to excellence, I will fire every single one of them. I have never forgotten those words since 1983. And I've tried to practice it in my business also. Can you just expand on that? Because I'll have to say that you just knocked me out of the park on that comment. And of course, you wound up as the coach practicing that.
I believe that because we've seen it so many times. Everybody has got a role to play. And everybody got to be totally committed to getting that done. There has to be one objective. But sometimes you get a trainer or you get an equipment man that they're going to just go their own way and they're going to say, hey, I've been through 4 coaches and I can hardly wait for the 5th when you aren't going to change me. I'm going to do it the same sloppy, dirty way I've always done it. And that doesn't fit in with the policy. There has to be one philosophy that runs through the whole organization. What I refer to as core values. What are our core values? If you don't practice the core values in the equipment room, in the training room, in the academic, in your representation, if the same core values are not shared by everybody in that organization, it's not going to succeed because you're always going to have a place where the losing group, so to speak, the uncommitted group can go find a haven and complain about how everybody else is wrong. And they get that pathetic ear. They get the self-pity, they wallow in it. It's somebody else's fault, it's not mine. Whereas if you have the same core values and everybody understands that we all have to be held accountable to the same standards, then it's easy to get things done. And I might add, we lost 17 straight games going in there, and 2 years later, we're in a bowl game.
Remarkable achievement. Proud to have been there side by side with you. What was maybe the lowest point in your life? If you could share that with our audience.
Well, I hope I've had it, but I've never really been one to wallow in self-pity, etc. There's several of them. I think, without a doubt, when my wife was diagnosed with cancer stage 4, you know, when a loved one, and we've been married 46 years, and they say she has 10% chance to live, and you can't do anything other than get her to the best medicine and encourage her and pray for her. But when it happens to somebody else, when your son's in a coma and they're not sure he's going to make it, you know, it's the things you can't control. We're going to have ups, we're going to have downs, we're going to have disappointments, we're going to have joys. But that's all part of life, and you bounce back from it, and it's the attitude you have when this happens. As Woody Hayes once said, you don't say if this happens, you say when it happens, because it's going to happen to all of us. But I'll never forget a doctor said to Beth once, now who in your family would you rather have cancer than you? And all of a sudden, as a mother, it was like, well, I'm glad it's me. I'm not as glad it's not my children, etc. And her attitude was marvelous. And I think that is attributed to her miraculous recovery. I definitely would say that was the lowest point in my life.
I should say, knowing both you for these past 24 years, the highest point in your life, from my perspective, is that you, Lou Holtz, and I'll say it on camera, married over your head.
Well, I think she would agree with that. That's why she canceled the wedding once.
Oh, you never told me about that.
Oh yeah, well, see, we had a love-hate relationship.
That's the first time you've never told me she canceled the wedding.
As a matter of fact, we had a love-hate relationship. I loved her and she hated me. But eventually, and we're opposite. As she said, opposites attract and then attack. But she's been a great wife, and we have 4 wonderful children. But the best advice I was ever given as a husband Or somebody said to me, most important thing you do as a father is always make sure that child knows how much you love their mother. If they know how much you love their mother, they can handle everything else. It'll give them a security, and I've never forgotten that, and I've always tried to practice it. Never have my children ever see me get upset with Beth.
How about the highest point? And I know you've had a lot of them, but does anything just click in, maybe head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to maybe something that happened to you personally, highest point in your life? I mean, or let's even back up for a moment if we can. I remember, I might have the number wrong, but you wrote down 106 goals that you had in life, and you accomplished quite a few of them. Talk about that for a minute, and then maybe which one of them might have been one of the highest.
We had 108, and we've
108.
done 102. Visiting with the Pope personally with my wife was a marvelous experience. But I think this, that there's a rule in life, Harvey. It says you're either growing or you're dying. So's a tree, so's grass, so's a person. It has everything to do with whether you have dreams and hopes and goals. And everybody needs 4 things in their life. If you don't have one of these 4 things, you're going to find a void in your life. Everybody needs something to do, something you're passionate about. Everybody needs someone to love. And everybody needs something to hope for. And everybody needs something to believe in. And if you don't have all 4 of those, and if you make the mistake that when you enjoy success, you start saying, well, let's maintain this. Let's not take any risks. Let's not jeopardize it. And once again, you're either growing or you're dying. So's a business, so's a person. It doesn't have a thing to do with age, but it has everything to do with whether you're trying to get better. And when I look back at Notre Dame, you get successful and you take program on the bottom, you take the very top, and for 9 straight years go to a January 1 bowl, you say, let's just keep it here. Let's maintain it. Let's not take any risks. And when I left Notre Dame, I never thought I'd coach again. Because I thought I was tired of coaching. It turned out you weren't tired of coaching. You're tired of maintaining. And to me, I think that's where excitement and disappointment comes. Whether you're trying to get better, or whether you're trying to maintain.
We're also, to back it up just a moment, were some of those goals also be on Johnny Carson?
Yeah, be on Johnny Carson show, make a hole in one, learn how to do
meet the
magic.
president, and how many did I hear you say? 108 goals?
108. And we've done 102.
You've done 102.
Yes.
And can I make a prediction that when you do the other 6, whatever they are, I know what you're going to do, and I know what every listener out there should do when they make the same number of goals, whatever. You tear it up and you write down another 108 goals.
Yeah,
Is that right?
there are other things you want to do, but from that original list of 108, and you try to get them done. Now, I have not run with the bulls, although I'd made arrangement to do it because I can't find a slower person, but my youngest son, Kevin, has run with the bulls. But I think it's important not to go through life and be a spectator, be a participant. And we all ought to have goals and dreams.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I never wrote an autobiography because I didn't want to. It's like telling people about your problems. 90% don't care, and the other 10% are glad you got them. And I just think this, that 3 days after I die, when people find out I'm not resurrected from the dead, don't forget about you. But I've always said this. On my tombstone, I want to say I told you I was sick. My wife, oh, you're not sick. Yeah, you're okay. But no, I just think this is just an individual you could trust, was committed and cared. Just a simple individual who tried to do the right thing.
On handling success, you've written that your dad had a lot of great qualities, but the ability to handle success was not one of them. Could you expand on that? Apparently your father went from being a bus driver to owning a small local bus company. Can you describe and talk about that?
Well, my dad had only gone to the 3rd grade and had to drop out of school in order to work for his family. And of course, I was born during the Depression, and he was in the Navy. And he came back, he was a bus driver. And the guy that owned the bus company died. And so they stopped the bus service, and in the Catholic grade school, asked my dad to get some buses for the charter to take the Catholic kids to St. Aloysius, which he did. And then a few weeks later, the city comes and said, would you run the bus lines for the city, because they didn't have any transportation. He knew what was profitable. And next thing you know, within 3 months, he got a bus company, and he's hiring people, and he's making successful money. I mean, more money than he ever made in his entire life. But you got to be able to handle success as well. And it just sort of changed his values. He left my mother. He changed in some other respect. And it wasn't because he wasn't a very good person. But it's just that we have to understand that whether we're successful or whether we're not, we better have values that we believe in and not change. And I've seen success change a lot of people. Most people, when they become successful, think they become invisible. They can do anything and nobody's going to see them. And invincible, that they can get away with everything or anything. And it happens to all people, but I saw it in my father firsthand. Doesn't mean he was any less of a man. He just was not prepared to handle success. Eventually, he let the business run out and became bankrupt.
When you got out of the Army, you couldn't get a job as an equipment manager, so you moved back home and worked at a hospital scrubbing operating room floors. You're no stranger, of course, to adversity, so how important has it been for your players to have experienced adversity?
I think one of the more difficult things with youngsters today, we don't want them to have any adversity or difficulty. We don't want any winners. We don't want any success. Let's make everybody exactly the same. And when we do that, you don't learn to handle it. You go through 7 stages of life, Harvey. Infancy, where you're dependent upon everybody. And then you go through early childhood. And all of a sudden, you find out you aren't the fastest, you aren't the biggest, you aren't the strongest, you aren't the smartest, you aren't the quickest. Not everybody likes you. But you learn to cope with it. You learn to live with it. And you learn to do it in school. You learn to do it in athletics. You learn to do it in life. And from learning to cope with that comes your confidence and your ability to handle difficulties as you go on. And many businesses will tell you today that many people they're hiring that are young don't know how to handle adversity or difficulty because they've never had to face any, because everybody should be exactly the same. We all have talents and abilities in different areas. Maybe somebody can dance, somebody can sing, somebody can draw, somebody can talk, somebody can make tools with their hand, or a carpenter. But we aren't going to be talented in every single area, but let's find out what our talents are, abilities, and utilize those for a successful and happy life.
Setbacks don't define your goals, you do. When Paul Dietzel was named head coach at South Carolina, you were an assistant. You say that he fired you within the hour after meeting you. He asked, have you ever thought about going into a different profession? How do you deal with those setbacks?
Well, it wasn't Paul Dietzel's fault. I didn't know anybody at South Carolina because I'd only been there a month. And I didn't know Paul Dietzel, didn't know anybody on his staff. He didn't know me. And he was bringing his staff anyway, and he didn't have a need for an awful lot of coaches, and I certainly didn't impress him. And he only kept 2 or 3 of the previous staff. And all of a sudden, you know, you understand where you are, and you look and say, okay, how are we going to survive? Well, after my wife gave birth to Kevin, she went to work as an x-ray technician. I'm a stay-at-home dad. But when the opportunity comes, you make the most of it. Now, here's the irony of the thing. That was in March of 1966. In March of 1968, I'm coaching the national champions at Ohio State under Woody Hayes. That's how quick your life can change if you persevere.
One trait that you admired in Coach Woody Hayes was he never let his coaches or his team get too high or too low. So how important is this kind of balance? And is it better to have a realistic attitude or a totally confident one?
No, I think this. I think nothing's as good as it seems, and nothing's as bad as it seems. In between there, reality falls. No matter what happens, it isn't that good. No matter what happens, it isn't that bad. It's all the attitude and how we approach it. And I think your obligation as a coach is to keep people grounded, to lift them up when they're down, to bring them to reality when they lose sight of what reality really is.
Discipline is not what you do to someone, these are your words, but what you do for them. So then how can managers do a better job of distinguishing discipline then from punishment?
Well, there's a difference between discipline and harassment. Discipline is what makes you a better man, a better person, a better athlete. If the answer is yes, that's discipline. If the answer is no, that's harassment. It's like two guys got a puppy. The one guy loved the puppy. All he wanted that puppy to do was love him in return. Everybody said, how great that is. Look how much he loves that puppy. The other guy got a puppy, same type. First thing he did was put a choke collar on that sucker. And every time that dog looked left or right, the choke collar grabbed, and everybody said, oh, how mean he is. A year later, the guy takes choke collar off the dog runs the neighborhood, and everybody loves the dog. Why? He knew what it could do, what it could not do, what parameters. The guy loved the puppy and allowed to do anything he wanted, could never give it any freedom. Now, do you want a choke collar for a year and a lifetime of freedom? We have to have some self-discipline. We have to have some enforced discipline so we learn what is acceptable, what is not, so that we can then have the freedom to make the proper choices without infringing on other people's rights and privileges.
Can you tie in, I can't remember from your speeches, the principle, and you know it's my favorite, about the kicker, you intend to be at every game. Was there a principle behind that? You can just go right into that. I can't remember how you used that. Well, it just popped into my head, but I can't remember what principle you used behind that.
Oh, it's just the first year at the University of South Carolina, you know, what's your reaction when things don't go well? My wife had her second major cancer surgery. My son Skip went into a coma the week we played Georgia. My mother died the Friday before we played Florida. I was on a school airplane for 4 days recruiting, had my suitcase, my hanging bag. We landed at Lady Island Airport. And the pilot said, will you visit the athlete? We're going to fly 11 miles to Hilton Head to get gas, come back and get you. During that 11-mile flight, the school plane crashes. One pilot was killed instantly, another seriously injured, later died. We lost every single football game we played that year, went 0-11. I had a kicker that said, I can't kick when you're watching. And I explained to him I was going to be at the game as part of the contract. What's your attitude when you're down? Everybody's picking on you. Everybody's writing negative articles, saying nasty things. I'm at an airport. The guy said, did anybody tell you look like Lou Holtz? I said, happens all the time. He said, it really makes you mad, doesn't it? You know, you got two choices. You move on or you wallow in self-pity.
At Notre Dame, you said the student body has always been the 12th man. Inside companies, life is a lot more competitive. Let's say that the sales team is the team on the field. How do you get the rest of the company to support the sales like the 12th man?
Well, what I did say at Notre Dame was the student body's the 12th man, and it's a good one. But after looking at our schedule, we might need 13. 12 might not be enough. But I think what you have to understand is, what are we trying to do as a company? What are our core values? We're trying to satisfy the needs of the customer, and if you're going to do that, you have to have teamwork. And teamwork means, number one, we need each other. There's all kinds of monuments or Hall of Fames, but I've never seen a monument built to a team. You need offense, defense, kicking game. You need marketing. You need sales. You need distribution. You need production. Let's understand we need each other. Let's also understand whatever your role is, you must do that to the very best of your ability, because if you don't do your role to the best of your ability, you're jeopardizing the overall goal of the organization. There are a lot of other things about teamwork that time does not allow here. But if we just understand that the role we have, and that we can't have a weak link, and as the challenge escalates, the need for teamwork must elevate. And we all have to work together for one common cause. Whatever your role is, you have to do that to the best of your ability.
When the last thought you give an athlete is negative, negative things usually happen. You talk about this in terms of a game that happened at Penn State in the 1980s. Could you run down the details for me on that?
Well, we're playing Penn State. It was 1987. We're like number 6 in the country. It's late in the year. It's cold. And Tony Race was our quarterback, and right before the half, we drove down to their 4-yard line with like 30 seconds to go, but Tony wasn't the most accomplished passer at that time. Had a young man on the bench named Kent Graham, who was a pretty good passer, who ended up playing the NFL. And I put him in because I was going to throw the ball, and I said to him, I said, Kent Graham, we have 3 points on the board. Don't take it off by throwing an interception. Last thing I did, I put a negative thought in his mind. He threw the interception. We end up losing the game eventually by 1 point. And I look back on it, wasn't that young man's fault. I'm saying, don't throw an interception. We got 3 points. What I should have said in a positive manner, Kent, you protect the ball great. Just go out there and do your own thing. And if everything doesn't work out, we'll kick the field goal. Have fun. Being positive, being upbeat along that line. But I think it's like anything else, that you can't put negative thoughts in your mind because that's how the body's going to react. How many times we said in golf, don't hit it left. There it goes, dead left. Don't put those thoughts in your mind. It wasn't the young man's fault. It was my fault.
Well, let me say there's only one way that I could end this interview, and I sincerely believe with all my heart and all my soul and all my might, Coach, that if 100 people meet Lou Holtz, all 100 people will not like him. They will love him.
But,
Thanks, Coach.